From the Vedas. This is on page 50. Page 50 of the book Universal Prayers. The second one on that page. Om Sham no Mitra Sham Varuna Shanno Bhavatvaryama Sham na Indra Brihaspatihi Sham no Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vaya Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Rutam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the presiding deity of day be propitious to us. May the presiding deity of night be propitious to us. May the presiding deity of the sense of vision be propitious to us. May the gods of strength and of intellect also be propitious to us. May the all-pervading Lord be propitious. Adoration to Brahman, adoration to Thee, the controller of activities. Thou art verily the visible Brahman. Verily I will declare Thee to be the visible Brahman. The right will I speak, the truth will I speak. May Brahman protect me. May Brahman protect the preceptor. May he protect me. May he protect the preceptor. Om, peace, peace be within us all. Peace and harmony be amongst all beings. Peace be everywhere in nature. So let us continue. You have to start with verse number 34.
34.
That is a new topic. The importance of a teacher in spiritual life. We need teacher for everything, whatever we want to learn. We need somebody to teach. Especially in spiritual life, the role of a teacher is very, very important. Most people have to have a teacher. Rare exceptions are there where without a teacher, somebody can make progress and reach the goal. Those are extremely rare. The only case I remember is Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. He didn't have any teacher. He had his realization, self-realization when he was a young man, still a boy. And then the rest of the time he remained absorbed in that, in the self, away from the crowd, in the caves, in the Tiruvannamalai, Arunachalam caves. Other than that, everybody has to have a teacher. Sri Ramakrishna had 4 or 5 teachers, including Bharavi Brahmani, who taught him all the Vaishnava and Tantra methods. So teacher is important. That is explained in verse number 34. This verse 34 also says what we should do, how we should approach a teacher. So let us chant verse number 34. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastatvadarshinaha. Tat vidhi, two words. Tat means that. That means what in this context? That means Brahman, supreme reality. There are two words in Vedanta convention, idam and tat. Idam means this. When we say idam, we refer to this world. Idam sarvam jagat. We simply say idam. When we say that, we refer to Brahman. The reason is, this world appears to be near to us. Idam jagat means this world, right here, we are in this world. It's not far away from us. So we refer to this as this, like this person, this book, nearby. That means far away object. Brahman appears far away, to us at least now. But in truth, it is the opposite. Brahman is the closest to us. Our very self is Brahman. World is also outside of us. Now that really will come after realization. Right now, it appears Brahman is far away. So convention, that means Brahman. Ultimate reality. That vidhi. Vidhi means know, understand. How we should understand? Three things we have to do when you approach a teacher. First is pranipatena. Pranipata means dirgha namaskara. 8 parts of the body touching the floor. It's called Sashtanga Namaskara. Ashta means 8. Sa Ashta Anga. 8 Anga, 8 parts of the body must be touching the floor. That is the way to do pranam properly when we see a guru, qualified guru. So that is pranipata. What is the meaning of doing this pranipata? It indicates humility and surrender on the part of the student. Willingness to listen to the teacher with humility. Readiness to learn whatever the teacher is going to teach. Humility, readiness, and willingness to serve. These are indicated by the Sashtanga Namaskara. Pranipatena, first thing. Second thing that the student has to do is pariprashna. Pariprashnena. Pari, the prefix pari means thoroughly, from all sides. Prashna means inquiring, asking question. When you study a subject, we have to inquire it thoroughly from every aspect. We should not be content by studying one part of it and then thinking I have learned everything. Everything that is there to be learned has to be learned. Some people listen to a few shlokas of the Gita and then they said, yeah, I have studied the Gita. That is not thorough study. Limited partial study, that is not good. Pariprashna means a thorough, complete inquiry into the nature of the self from every angle. That is in the commentary, he says, Pariprashna means what is the nature of bondage? Shankara says, Ko bandaha, why am I in this state of ignorance? The student should ask the teacher. Upanishads say you're Brahman Tattvamasi, you're not the body mind, but I don't have that knowledge. Why am I bound in this ignorance? Gobandaha, katham moksha, how can I become liberated from this ignorance? Ka vidya, what is true knowledge? Earlier we saw knowledge is of two kinds. Paravidya, aparavidya. Aparavidya is all the knowledge, branches of knowledge familiar to us. All the sciences and arts and humanities and social sciences and technology, grammar, logistics, logic, linguistics, all those things, astronomy to zoology, all those things fall into Aparavidya category. Is that all, or is there some other vidya? Paravidya. So that has to be inquired. Ka vidya, kacha avidya, what is ignorance? Why this ignorance is there? Why am I not aware of my true self as Atman if I am Atman? So all these questions have to be asked nicely, gently, with humility. That is pariprashna. So tadveddi pranipatena pariprashnena. Third thing, one more thing has to be done when we see a teacher. That is sevaya. Seva means service. In India, they say, please tell me any seva that I can do. मेरे लाइक कोई सेवा बताओ जी क्या कर सकता हूँ. Like this in North India they say, when you see somebody, what can I do for you? Just courtesy. So seva means service has to be done to the teacher. Seva is very important. And I'll give 2 examples of how students can receive Guru's grace and all knowledge merely by serving the Guru. Seva. Sincere, heartfelt, loving service to the Guru alone will earn the grace of the Guru and all knowledge will come. 2 stories. So let us finish the shloka first. Sevaya. Tadvidhi, know that self-knowledge, Brahman, by pranipata, Sashtanga Namaskar, pariprashna, by thorough inquiry into all aspects of the question, sevaya, by service, rendering service to the teacher. 3. Then what happens? What do they do? Teachers, te jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. Those jnanis, te jnaninaha, they means they, those jnanis who are knowers of truth, tattvadarshinaha. Such people can only be teachers. Te jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha kim purvanti upadekshanti. Jnanam upadekshanti. They'll impart knowledge to you. So what the student has to do and what the teacher will do. Student has to be approached with humility, do Sashtang Pranam, and inquire with humility all the questions about the nature of self and how to become free from ignorance, and do personal service. 3 things. And in return, those jnanis who know the truth, tattvadarshina, they will impart knowledge of the self to you. Jnanam upadekshanti. Te means to you. Te also means they. That is the shloka. Now, everybody cannot be a guru. The guru has very specific qualifications. In the Viveka Chudamani, Shankara's Viveka Chudamani, 10 or 12 qualifications are mentioned for a guru, for someone who wants to be a guru. Each one of them is very stringent. Without those qualifications, we simply say, I cannot say I'm a guru. You can study together as we are doing, but cannot be a guru. And in the Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, 2 qualifications are mentioned for a guru. Sri Ramakrishna has mentioned one more qualification. So you will see what are the qualifications of a guru who can be a guru in spiritual life. In other subjects, the qualifications are not that stringent. Somebody who knows mathematics can teach mathematics to others. But other than knowledge of mathematics, there is no other qualification required for the teacher. But here it is not like that. Many qualifications are required to be a teacher. So let us see. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there is a very famous mantra. It says, when should a student approach a teacher? The time must be proper. If the time is not proper, if you approach a teacher when it is not the right time, then the student-teacher relationship may not begin on the right footing. Timing has to be good. When is the time? When the student is prepared to learn. The student must be eager to learn. That eagerness to study must be there. Very strong desire to study must be there. If there is no desire to study, if you simply go to a teacher, I want to learn Vedanta, that won't work. Sometimes what happens in regular schools and colleges, some students are in the class, they are not interested in study, but they are there because their parents want them to go to school and get a degree. So that is not going to work. Readiness must be there. So when a student is perfectly ready to receive the knowledge, then study will be successful. Preparation on the part of the student. So what's the preparation? The Mundaka Upanishad says, Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanaha nirvedamayat. One requirement for a student before approaching a teacher, what preparation a student should have. A person must have examined the nature of the happiness that this world gives. This world gives happiness through objects. This world, what ordinarily people seek happiness in this world through several means. Acquiring property, more money means more happiness, like this they think. Raising a family, children, grandchildren, husband, wife, and having a good position, power, fame, youth, beauty, entertainment, good food, dress, God. These are all the things where ordinarily people seek happiness. A person who wants to know self-knowledge must have rejected these things after examining them thoroughly. Pariksha means examining all these things that this world can this world can offer. None of this can give me happiness. That conviction must come. I want only knowledge of self, knowledge of God. God or Atman can only give true happiness. This world cannot give lasting happiness. Temporary, some pleasure it will give, but a lot of problems. That conviction must be the preparation for approaching a teacher, before approaching a teacher. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmana nirvedamayat. Then tad vijnanartha. That means Brahman. To know Brahman, which is one's true nature. All this is Brahman Upanishad says. To know that, tad vijnanartham, in order to know Brahman, the supreme reality, saha, such a person, seeker, Gurumeva avigachet, must approach a guru. Guru's qualification will come later. How should he approach? Samit Panihi. You know the word Samit? Samit means the dry twig of the tree, pupil tree, Ashwatha tree, dry pieces of twig, which are used in the fire ceremony, Agnihotra. He should carry a bundle of that in his hand. What does it indicate? The student must approach a teacher holding a bundle of dry twigs used in fire ceremony. It indicates willingness to serve the teacher, being a part of the teacher's household, willingness to serve. That is Samit Panihi. And the teacher must have at least two qualifications. The teacher must be Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. In that verse, only two qualifications are mentioned. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. The teacher must be Shrotriya. Shruti means scripture. Shruti means scripture, Vedic scriptures, Upanishad specifically. Shrotriya is a person who has mastered the Vedanta. Upanishad is Vedanta. Who has mastered Vedanta and must be absorbed in it, not theoretical knowledge. Simply being able to quote Upanishadic mantras and Gita shlokas does not mean knowledge. That is not knowledge. So Triya means one must have absorbed the essence of all the scriptures and must be living according to that. That is not true, not necessary in the case of Apara Vidya. For example, I don't want to be giving wrong examples. Some academic professors are there, highly qualified in their field, but their personal life is not really that great. All kinds of things they do. But they are very good teachers. They get rewards being the best teacher of the year. That means personal life is not a part of the teaching in the academic studies. That is not the case in Vedanta. A person must be living according to the injunctions of the scriptures around the clock, 24 hours. What the scripture said, that he must be doing. Saying something, living something else, will not do in Vedanta. He must be living according to that. So Triyam, second qualification is Brahmanishtam. Person must be established in knowledge of Brahman. Two qualifications for the teacher. So that is not mentioned in the Gita shloka. Qualifications are not mentioned, but 3 steps are mentioned. So it's very difficult to find a teacher of that caliber. Sri Ramakrishna said, only such a person who has received direct command from God can be a teacher. Somebody reading so many books and being able to explain things nicely cannot, not enough. That's not enough. That person must be leading his life in the Vedic purest lifestyle and must have received command from God to teach other people. We said this in the gospel several times. So it's very high, stringent qualifications to be a teacher. That is, those are the teacher's qualifications. Then, if somebody finds such a teacher, and if somebody is eager to study, is prepared, has lost interest in pursuing worldly pleasures, family life and money and job, not much interested, but wants to know self-knowledge, only Atma Jnana. When such a student approaches such a teacher, then what happens? Knowledge is important. Jnanam upadekshanti. And of all the 3 things that are mentioned in the first line, Pranipata, Pariprashna, Seva, 3 things are mentioned in the first line. Of these three things, if you ask me what is the one most important thing, I will say Seva is the most important thing. Pranipata means Sashtang Namaskar, humility. Pariprashna, thorough inquiry, studying subject from every angle. Seva means service. Seva is the important thing. So I will give 2 examples how students achieve knowledge only by seva. One example is familiar to you, Latu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutananda Ji Maharaj. He came to city, Calcutta city, with his uncle because his parents had passed away when he was very young in some village in Bihar, some place. And he got a job as a orderly in a chemist druggist shop. And the owner of that druggist shop happened to be Ramchandra Datta, who was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So through that Ramchandra Datta, Latu Maharaj came in contact with Sri Ramakrishna. And when Sri Ramakrishna saw this boy, immediately recognized him as one of the future disciples. Sri Guru Maharaj, Sri Ramakrishna had that ability by looking at one person, he could know everything about that person, past, present, and future. So, but Latu Maharaj did not have any education. He could not go to school. He was an orphan. He didn't have any education, did not know how to read Hindi or Bengali or any language. Sri Ramakrishna tried to teach him Bengali. Several days, Sri Ramakrishna tried hard to teach him the first two letters of the alphabet. But in spite of so much effort, the boy could not learn those two letters. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, no, stop it. This is not for you. You don't have to learn English. You don't have to learn Bengali or English or anything, Sanskrit or anything. You will get knowledge. So Latu Maharaj served Sri Ramakrishna day and night. Any kind of service Sri Ramakrishna needed, before being asked, he would do the service with great devotion. And whatever instructions Sri Ramakrishna gave, he followed it diligently without making any relaxation. So how diligent he was in his practice. One day in the evening, when people were there in the Sri Ramakrishna's room, Latu was sitting there, he was dozing off like this. Sri Ramakrishna told him, hey, at this time you should not sleep. This is the time for a prayer. Why are you sleeping at this time? Just told him, that's all. From that day onwards, Latu Maharaj took a vow, I am not going to sleep. Every night he will be staying awake doing japa, mantra given by Sri Ramakrishna. All day and hardly 2 hours or 1.5 hours in a 24 hours he would catch a sleep. Other times, now sleep, gave up sleep. And so much concentration that one day he was sitting, Latu was sitting on the steps of the Ganges doing meditation. And he completely became lost in meditation, not aware of the surroundings. The water level came up, tide came up, and whatever reached his body is reaching his legs. He was not aware of it. So deep concentration, so much deep concentration. Then somebody, it was Swami Advaitananda, noticed it. He tried to wake up Latu. Latu, get up, water is coming, get up, get up. He could not wake up, so deep concentration. Then Swami Advaitananda ran to Sri Ramakrishna, told, Latu is in meditation, water is coming up, he is not getting up. So Sri Ramakrishna went and woke him up. So like this, many instances are there. That Latu Maharaj, who never could read any language, in later years, he spent his last years in Varanasi. Many great Vedic scholars, Varanasi is a stronghold of Vedic scholars. They would go to him to seek clarification on certain Vedantic questions. He would, from the experience, he would explain without having read any book. So he got knowledge simply by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna. One example. The second example, I'm talking about Seva. Pranipata, Pariprashna, Seva, I'm talking about it. In the life of Shankaracharya, you may have heard, Shankaracharya had 4 major disciples. Padmapada, Sureshwaracharya, Hastamalaka, and Totakacharya. 4 other disciples were there. These are 4 well-known disciples. Of these 4 disciples, Sureshwara and Padmapada were great Vedantic scholars. Sureshwara was a topmost scholar of Mimamsa philosophy. He was a householder. Shankara defeated him in Mimamsa debate, and Sureshwara became a sannyasi. Padmapada was a great scholar. So these people used to go, Shankara used to go from place to place in India and do camps, 1 week, 10 days camps in some towns, teaching Vedanta. So they went to one town in South India. At that time, only 3 disciples were there. Shankaracharya went with Padmapada, Sureshwara, and Hastamalaka. 3 people were there. And they made a camp, type of camp. People used to come, Shankaracharya used to give discourses. At that time, the name of the town was Sringeri. Sringeri is a famous town, pilgrimage town in South India and Karnataka. That was the town where Shankara went, Sringeri. So at that time, one young man came there. That young man's name was Giri. Giri came to Sri Ramakrishna and asked Sri Ramakrishna, "Sir, I want to become your disciple. Will you please accept me?" Shankara looked at Giri and he said yes. But Giri did not have any kind of preparation. He did not know Sanskrit, he did not know grammar, he did not know Nyaya, Tarka, logic. No preparation, but he wanted to study. Shankara knew that, he accepted it. So Giri specialized in doing seva. Every day from morning until night, Giri would do personal service with great devotion to Shankara. Whatever Shankara needed, Giri would do it without being asked, before being asked. Preparing water for Shankara's bath, preparing his food, washing his clothes, preparing his asana, and taking care of his personal needs, washing all the dishes, and preparing the bed at night. Whatever Shankara needed at any time, before being told, Giri did it with great diligence, very efficiently, with great devotion. That was his seva. So one day what happened, they were all sitting for class, daily class used to be there. Shankara is sitting there, Padmapada, Sureshwara, and other people are sitting there. But Giri is not in the class. He had gone to wash Shankara's clothes to a river nearby. So class time came, but Giri was not there. So Shankara was waiting patiently. Let Giri come, then we will start the class. Like this, Shankara was waiting. But other students, especially Padmapada, Sureshwara, they became impatient. They were scholars. They said to Shankara, "Sir, this Giri can come and join whenever he wants. He's not such a great scholar, he's not that good. We don't have to wait for him. Let us start the class." So they started chanting Shanti Mantra before class. Shankara stopped them. "No, let him come." So after a few minutes, Giri came. He had gone to wash Shankara's clothes. He was delayed there. And he stood there feeling very guilty because everybody is waiting and he's late for the class. So Shankara mentally blessed him. No word was said. No word was said. Nothing was done. Immediately, Giri, on the spot, composed a most beautiful Vedantic hymn in a beautiful Sanskrit meter and chanted it extemporaneously. This young man who had never shown any ability in Sanskrit or grammar or poetry, all of a sudden composed this beautiful hymn in a very difficult meter called Totaka meter. Meters have names, Chandas have names. Anushtup meter in Gita, like that. And chanted it on the spot. Other students, they became astounded, dumbfounded. How this man who did not know anything can compose such a sublime Vedantic hymn? All because one thought only in Shankara's mind. May this boy be blessed. May he get knowledge. One thought, that's enough. Knowledge will come. In the instant. So from then onwards, what happened? The particular meter in which the hymn was composed is called Totaka meter. Totaka meter has two lagus and one goru, two short, one long syllable, like that. And because the name of the meter was Totaka, from that time onwards, Shankara told, from today onwards, your name will be Totakacharya. He became known as Totakacharya. So this is how, by the grace of Guru, by seva, chit sevayam, in verse number 34, by doing seva, by receiving Guru's grace, one can achieve knowledge just like that. Latu Maharaj and Totakacharya. This Totakacharya Giri composed a sublime Vedantic hymn, highest profound thoughts of Vedanta in a beautiful hymn. And that hymn is, it will take a long time to chant. What I'm going to do, I'll chant the first stanza only of the hymn that Totaka composed on the spot, only one stanza. It's called Totaka Ashtakam. Ashtaka means 8 hymns, 8 stanzas. Vidita Khila Shastra Sudha Jaladhe Mahitopanishat Kathitartha Nidhe Hridaye Kalaye Vimalam Charanam Bhava Shankara Deshikane Sharanam Bhava Shankara Deshikame Sharanam. English translation. Oh, the best of all teachers, addressing Shankara. You are the knower of all the scriptures, which are the ocean of nectar. You are the abode and the essence of truth, which is the theme in all the great Upanishads. I ever bear your pure feet in my heart. May you become the sole refuge for me, O Lord Shankara. Like this, by seva, by doing devoted, humble service to the teacher, we can acquire knowledge. Does not mean we should not study. We should do study also. Pariprashna also we have to do. But seva is important. So that is sloka number 34. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. The teacher must be tattva-darshan, knower of truth. Otherwise, he cannot impart truth. Now we go to verse number 35. When one acquires such knowledge, then what happens is explained in verse number 35. Our ignorance will be cleared. Ignorance means our present state of awareness. Our present state of awareness is, I am this person, my name is Swami Brahmarupanda, I live in this ashrama, I am a Swami, and before that I was doing some work, and each of you, your own awareness that you are a person in your family, your father, mother, you are a child, whatever, that knowledge that we have of ourselves is ignorance, not true knowledge. That ignorance will be cleared once for all, permanently. We'll never go back to this domain of ignorance once we gain self-knowledge. In the case of early knowledge, apara vidya, it's possible to go back to ignorance after learning a subject. Supposing somebody masters a subject, chemistry or grammar or something, achieves high degree of proficiency. But that knowledge is not permanent. What happens? In an old age, the memory fades and we can't remember what we studied earlier. So that's not permanent knowledge. It does not create permanent transformation in our personality, that kind of knowledge. It is good, useful for early life. But this knowledge, self-knowledge, once acquired from the teacher, qualified teacher, Tattvadarshi, we go back to the domain of ignorance. We'll never ever think that I'm the body and the mind, I'm the Swami, I'm this person. That we'll never go back to return to ignorance. That is a permanent benefit. That's explained in verse number 35. यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पांडव येन भूतानि अशेषेण द्रक्ष्यसि आत्मनि यथो मयि. The words are to be separated. Yat jnatva, by knowing which, self-knowledge. Punaha moham evam yasyasi na punaha. Na is there. You will not again go back into ignorance. Pandava means Arjuna. Yena, by which knowledge, asheshena, bhutani, all the beings, human beings, animal beings, plants, nature, sun, star, moon, everything, galaxies, everything, all beings, asheshena bhutani, atmani drakshyasi. Drakshyasi atmani, in yourself. You see, everything you see in yourself. Whole universe is contained within oneself. Brahman is yatho mayi, and also in me. There is no difference. So you are seeing difference now. In ignorance, you see difference. I am this person, and you're all different people, different from me. And this nature is different from me. And this God is different from me. So there is God, and I, and all the other people, animals, plants, things. And three different things we are seeing. When this knowledge comes, all the three merge into one, only one is there. Only another is the true either's Brahman. There's no two separating. Ekameva advitiyam. There's a very famous sentence in Chandogya Upanishad. That ultimate truth, what we call Brahman or Atman in the Upanishad, ekameva, one alone. Advitiyam, without a second. And that knowledge will come, and that knowledge is permanent. It will never go back. One can never go back into ignorance once you acquire that knowledge. But in the world, in the case of worldly knowledge, you can study, acquire proficiency, but they can go back to ignorance also. That won't happen in Atmajnana, in spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge, once acquired, is permanent. You will see everything in one, everything in God and God in everything. That will come in the 6th chapter, sloka number 30. Such a person who acquires this knowledge of the self from teachers, such a person sees everything in God and God in everything. That's how he practices Samadarshitva, same-sightedness. Seeing God in all the beings and seeing all the beings in God. That will be permanent knowledge. Never goes back to ignorance. That is the sloka number 35. Now we go to sloka number 36, benefits of this knowledge. Api chedasi papebhyah sarvebhyah papakrittamah sarvam jnana plavenaiva vrujinam santarishyasi. The benefit of acquiring self-knowledge is explained here. All previous sins will be permanently deleted. All ignorance will go. Nothing will remain. So, even if among all sinners, if you are the very worst, by this raft of knowledge, you will go beyond the sin. Supposing there is a person who has done a lot of mistakes, and then that person somehow, by the grace of God, acquires this self-knowledge, then such a person will cross over all the ocean of worldly existence and reaches supreme reality. It's permanent. Api chedasi. Asi means you are. Even if you are, sarvebhyah papebhyah papakrittamaha. Of all the sinners, sarvebhyah papebhyah, of all the sinners, if you are the worst sinner, papakrittama, the suffix tama means superlative. Tara means comparative. Papakrita means the worst of all the sinners. Supposing such a person is there. If such a person somehow approaches a Tattvajnani, Tattvadarshi, and by service, Pariprashna, Seva, acquires knowledge, with that knowledge, with that raft or boat of knowledge, he will cross over all the ocean of sins, ignorance. Sarvam jnana plavenaiva. Plava means the boat, a ship or boat. Jnana plavena, by the boat of jnana, self-knowledge. Sarvam rujanam santarishyasi. Rujanam means all the sins. No sin will cling to the Brahmajnani. Permanent purification. No going back. No more sin can be done by such a person. It's impossible for such a person to do any sin. That is, these are benefits of self-knowledge, which are greater than the benefits of worldly knowledge. Worldly knowledge is also useful, necessary for worldly life, but they don't have this kind of permanent effect. Their effect is temporary. As long as you're active in the field, studying, doing research or teaching and applying in daily life, then you're okay with knowledge. Then also have to keep on up to date when new things are coming. Once you retire, gradually that knowledge will, because you are not using it every day, it will slip away from your mind. That has served its purpose for some time, but this is not like that all time. No more ignorance at all. Now, verse number 37. All the previous bad karmas will be erased for a Brahmajnani. That's explained in the verse number 37. Yathedhamsi samidhognihi bhasmasat kuruterjuna jnanagnih sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. Yatha means just as. Edhamsi. Edhamsi means fuel, dry fuel, pieces of wood that are fed into the fireplace. Yatha edhamsi samidha agnihi. Samidha means blazing fire. If the fireplace is there, the fire is blazing, and then you put the dry fuel, pieces of wood into it. What does the fire do? It will burn up everything. Bhasmasat kurute Arjuna. Whatever fuel is put into a blazing fire, that blazing fire will burn up that fuel. That is first line. In the same way, tatha, you see word tatha, last word in the second line. Tatha, in the same way, jnana agnihi, the fire of knowledge. Knowledge means self-knowledge, the fire of self-knowledge. The fire of self-knowledge, sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute. Reduces to ashes all karma. All karma means past karma, present karma being done will not bear fruit, no impressions. Future karma also will not have any effect. Except one. There is an exception to this. That's in the commentary. We'll understand that one. So for a jnani, no past karma affects him. No matter what has been done before, nothing affects the person. It's burnt all the past karmas permanently, reduced to ashes. However, in the commentary, there is a exception made by Shankaracharya. Past karma consists of two portions. You know their names, two portions. Sanchita karma and then prarabdha karma. Please make a note of these two words. Sanchita karma, past karma done in the past. Prarabdha karma, also done in the past. All karma you have done in the past, not in this life, in previous life, all those past karmas fall into two categories, Sanchita, Prarabdha. What's the difference? Prarabdha means arambha karna, shuru, to begin something. That past karma which has begun to bear fruit in this life. This is called prarabdha karma. We are experiencing prarabdha karma. Some good, some bad. All of it is not bad. You have done some good, you have done some bad in previous lives. Some part of it is bearing fruit now. We are getting good and bad. We have some good things, we have bad things in our life. What we are experiencing is prarabdha karma. That is happening now. But a large part of past karma has not begun to bear fruit yet. It's still waiting. That is sanchita karma. That past karma which has been done before, which has not yet begun to bear fruit, that is sanchita. Sanchita means accumulated. Sanchaya karma means to accumulate. Accumulated past karma, which is in the storage, big storage. That is sanchita karma. It's not doing anything right now. It's not begun to bear fruit. But some part of that past karma is bearing fruit now for this life. So prarabdha karma is affecting right now, good and bad both. And how long the prarabdha will be there? As long as this body lasts. Then when the prarabdha exhausts, body leaves and this life is over. So the prarabdha will continue to act for jnani also. But it will not affect him or her. Because prarabdha, all karma only affects the body and the mind. Where is all suffering? Where do we feel the suffering? Any kind of suffering, where do we feel? In our personality, do we feel it in the body? Physical illness, we feel the pain in the body. Other kind of problem, feel in the mind. As we lose some money or somebody says something, I feel bad. That in the mind I suffer. But only in the body and the mind. All suffering, all enjoyment happens only in the body and the mind. But for the jnani, the body mind will not affect because he has gone beyond the body mind. He knows he is the Atman. For him, prarabdha will not affect. Prarabdha will affect the body mind, but he is not affected because he is Atman. He knows he is the Atman. I am not the body mind. So, though the body becomes sick, of a Mahatma also, his body also becomes sick. Like Swami Turiyananda's body became sick. So many disciples of Sri Ramakrishna became sick in their later years. But all that suffering happened only to the body mind and they remain unaffected. They means the Atman. Atmajnani remains unaffected, whatever happens to the body. So that is the exception. Except prarabdha karma, sanchita karma will be burnt completely. Therefore, there will be no new birth, additional birth, no next birth. Because sanchita has been burnt out. This will be the last birth for the jnana. Once you achieve Brahma Jnana, you are out of this birth, rebirth, death cycle. You are one with Brahman. No more rebirth. Punarjanma navidyate. So that is the benefit of Atma Jnana. The ordinary Jnana, Paravidya, it is only for good for this life. Supposing somebody has a very high degree, PhD in mathematics, and with this, when the person dies, that knowledge also goes away. Next time when the person is born, he has to start again with ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4. The previous life PhD will not help him. He has to start him from preschool, primary school, kindergarten, addition, multiplication. So this prapanchik jnana, worldly knowledge is temporary, only for this life. Atma jnana is for all time. It stops the cycle of birth and death. That is the difference between self-knowledge and ordinary worldly knowledge. Paravidya, aparavidya. Okay. Then we go to 38. almost 10. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha कालेनात्मनि विन्दति न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति. Nothing exists here as purifying as knowledge. Knowledge means self-knowledge. Perfected in yoga, in course of time, one wins it in one's own self. The difference between Brahmajnana, Atmajnana, and worldly knowledge, Aparavidya. Brahmajnana purifies the whole personality, removes all the sins and all karma will be washed away. No more rebirth. That's the effect of self-knowledge, Atmajnana. There is nothing that purifies a person more effectively than self-knowledge, Atmajnana. Once a person gets self-knowledge, absolutely pure, becomes one with Brahman. No more impurity, no more bad karma for such a person. That's not the case with worldly knowledge. It comes and goes. That Swayam Yoga Samsiddha, such a person who has achieved perfection in yoga practice, in course of time, wins it in one's own self. Atmani, kalena vindati. It comes within the self. There is no outside location for Atmajnana. You don't have to go to some other place, some other lab or some other institution to get Atmajnana. Right within oneself, because Atman is within oneself. It happens. You can feel the effect within oneself. Kalen Atmani Vindati. There's still 4 more verses. We'll do one more and stop. 39. It's easy. Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparas samyatendriyaha jnanam labdhva param shantim achirena dhigacchati. Shraddhavan. Shraddha, we have seen before, is a firm conviction based upon understanding, not blind belief. Firm conviction based upon understanding that the Upanishads contain the truth, Vedanta. And the teachings of the great Mahatmas, they reflect the truth. That conviction is called Shraddha. Shraddhavan Jnanam labate. Jnana means Atmajnana. Achieves Atmajnana. To achieve Atmajnana, self-knowledge, Shraddha is necessary. Shraddha means you approach a teacher, do a pranipata, pariprashna, say what to the teacher, and then you should trust the teacher is teaching you the right thing. That faith in the teacher's teaching must be there. Otherwise, you won't be able to absorb and benefit from the teacher's teaching. Faith in the teachings of the Guru. The teaching is, the Guru must be a Tattvadarshi, Brahmajnana. And what he is teaching is true. That conviction must be there. Such a person, one more requirement is, Samyatendriyaha. A student must control the sense organs. Earlier days, in the first stage of life, Brahmacharya Ashrama, students had to observe absolute Brahmacharya. No dating, no relationship, nothing. Now this situation is different. We don't have to talk about today's situation. Brahma student means absolute purity. Only dedication to acquiring knowledge, no other thought. That is what makes the mind sharp, conserves energy. And what the teacher says, quickly it will be absorbed and you will benefit from that knowledge. So, Samyatendriyaha, sense organs control. Student must control sense organs. In student life, no other activity, only acquiring knowledge. Nowadays, people do so many things. We don't worry about it. Jnanam labdhva. Jnana means self-knowledge. Gaining this self-knowledge, after getting self-knowledge, param shantim adhigacchati. Achirena. Achirena means quickly. Kshipram. A person achieves supreme peace. See, if you get self-knowledge, you will get permanent supreme peace. No more ignorance. If you get worldly knowledge, you get some benefit. You get a livelihood, and the benefit is temporary. With this life, it ends. So supreme knowledge is knowledge of the self. And to acquire this one, we need to have Shraddha. Shraddhavan Jnanam Labhate, Param Jnanam Labhate. Jnanam Labdhva, acquiring self-knowledge, Param Shantim, Achirena Adhigachate. Achirena means quickly, in this lifetime. If knowledge comes in this time, liberation comes in this lifetime. No, there is no delay, will not be there. That is the glory of self-knowledge in this shloka. There are 3 more. We'll complete them next time. Now you can ask questions. Sudhaji has an announcement to make. Sudhaji, if you want to, you have to unmute.
Swamiji, I have one question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he says the Guru is someone to whom God comes and says, okay, now you can teach. In today's world, how do we find such a person? Because the ones who are truly gurus, who got that direction from God, will not advertise or tell. And how are we going to find out who that person is?
Now, Guru comes in the form of their teacher, human being. In the Ramakrishna tradition, Sri Ramakrishna gave authority to his disciples to teach. And they gave authority to their disciples to teach. And they gave authority to, so they have to give authority. In everybody, no Swami can give Diksha in Ramakrishna mission. No, all Swamis cannot give at all. They can do classes. Anybody can be a class, but they cannot be a teacher. Who can be a teacher? Only those selected few Swamis who have received permission to give teaching from the president of the order. The president represents the Sri Ramakrishna. So that tradition is there.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Swamiji, I have a question. You mentioned Satchint Karma, Prarabdha Karma. What about Kriyaman Karma? That
Kriyamana Karma work being done now, because Jnanis perform all work without attachment, without expecting fruits, without attachment to karma phala, so that will not affect them. So if you do work with attachment, it will affect us. All Jnanis perform, Bhaktas also perform karma as offering, as puja, and then they will not be affected.
But that Kriyaman Karma is where you have a willful choice.
Yes, you have
do
to some extent you have freedom to do some work one way or other way, but you are doing it as an offering, as puja, as with detachment, sangam tyaktva, then you won't be affected by it.
The other question was, Swamiji, if we do austerities and pujas on Mondays for Shivaji, does that lead to eventual renunciation of the world?
If you do puja for Shiva on Monday, what happens?
Does that lead to renunciation? Like Shiva, Lord Shiva is renounced. He is not a worldly god. Does do the people end up following that path eventually?
If you offer worship to any god, you should offer it without expecting anything in return. As puja is offering, it is given, that is unselfish offering. Then you won't be bound by it. Devotion will increase. You will get devotion. You will get knowledge, liberation, but you will not be bound by the work. But you have to do it as an offering.
No, that's not my question. Like if you do puja of Datta, Lord Datta, then he leads you to total renunciation of family, and that's where you go. And I'm wondering if doing puja for Lord Shiva makes you renounce the world
Yes,
like
yes.
he did.
Shiva is the symbol of renunciation, personification of renunciation. Shiva will give you liberty, give you renunciation, he will give you liberation.
Yeah, liberation, but that means from worldly life. And see, I'm confused. That means if you are a family person, you leave the whole family and just renounce the world, or in the end, moksha.
Yeah, you don't renounce the world like that way. You live in the world, but with the inward detachment, internal detachment. You keep the family, keep the job, keep the children, do your duty by them, don't give them up. Do the puja, offer everything to God, and pray for renunciation and liberation. You will get that one.
Okay, yes, I understand. Thank you.
Swamiji, I have one doubt, Swamiji. Actually, this is a verse that was taught last class, Brahma Arpanam Brahma, that we say every time before eating. Brahmeva tena gantavyam Brahma karma samadhina. So one who sees Brahman in every action goes to Brahman. So what does seeing Brahman in every action look like, Swamiji?
Seeing every action as yajna, as offering to Brahman. Everything that we do, including eating, walking, breathing, and puja, worship, office work, everything is offering as yajna. If you see everything as yajna, then we'll achieve that knowledge of Brahman.
So, Swamiji, it's not seeing the action itself as Brahman.
Action is happening. Brahman is all parts of the action. The offering is Brahman, the person doing the action is Brahman, the materialist is Brahman, everything is Brahman. What else is there besides Brahman? In every action, Brahman appears as various components of the action. Brahman from Brahmavai means that one. The action, there are many components, the doer and the material use and the process, energy, everything. All that is Brahman only. If you see Brahman in everything as Brahman, then you have the Brahma Jnana. Is there something other than Brahman?
No, Swami.
Yeah.
But
when any action is being done, it has several components. Somebody who does the action, karta, and there is a material that is being used, and there is some action that takes place. There may be other people. All of those things are Brahman only. Brahman plays the part of the eater, Brahman plays the part of the food, Brahman plays the part of the material. He is alone appearing as everything.
But is Brahman also the act of eating?
Action is also Brahman. Everything, there is nothing other than Brahman.
Swamiji, I have a question. I just want to ask you, this is Manjusri from Raleigh.
Okay.
Prarabdha, it sounds like what you explained, we have no control first of all, we offer everything to the Lord. But Prarabdha and Sanchit, we cannot do anything. So, Kriyaman Karma, is that Kriyaman Karma which we, like japa, like reading this Gita,
you are doing now.
Or doing this Sadhvadhyaya, or chanting.
Yes.
So if we keep doing this in this birth, this is going to be a good Sanchit Karma, right?
This will,
if we are born again,
if you are born again, this will be your Prarabdha Karma. But before we go to that, I wanted to say something. Kriyamana Karma means not only japa, meditation, study of scriptures, all work you do, including office work, cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, playing, everything is Kriyamana Karma. All that has to be done as offering, as worship, as we saw before. Then it will not create any bondage. Purify the mind, make your mind pure. And Prarabdha Karma, we have some control. There are two views. Orthodox view is Prarabdha Karma cannot be changed at all. Whatever has been done has to be experienced, gone through. That is a traditional view. But Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, both have repeatedly, not once, repeatedly said but the intensity of suffering due to bad prarabdha can be greatly minimized by intense prayer and austerities. If you pray intensely and do austerities, japa, lot of japa, if you're supposed to, say, for example, suffer this much, you will suffer this much. Prarabdha. They have said that one repeatedly. But old school teachers don't agree. That prarabdha has to be gone through. So we believe in Sri Ramakrishna teaching, Holy Mother's teachings.
So in
I've
other words,
seen, and I've actually seen this one. In one case, I can't give the name. I actually seen this. Because of intense austerity, a person's suffering became greatly reduced. Greatly reduced. I've seen it. But you have to do intense austerity. Lot of japa you have to do. Pray.
so in other words, this is actually when we are doing that, is purposing and serving two purposes. Actually, anything going on here in this part, according to what you just said, it will be reduced. And on the other hand, if we have to, when we be born again, this will be acting as a good sanchit karma. So that,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's the way. Thank you.
Good. It will become the prarabdha karma for next life.
Thank you,
Probably
Maharaj.
won't be born again if you do that much intense austerity. You will get achieve liberation.
Thank
It
you,
depends upon God's will. Don't worry about whether we'll be born again or not. We can't know that now. It depends upon God's will and our whole spiritual journey. So we can't say anything definitely about whether we'll be reborn or not reborn or where we'll be reborn. We have better not to even try to think about those. It's not knowable. We can't know that one right now.
Thank you. Namaskar, Maharaj.
I'm really sorry. Can I just ask one question? If not,
Yes,
I can.
Ram Gopal.
Maharaj, how does one? What does the scripture say about conquering fear, Maharaj? Conquering fear, overcoming
Conquering fear.
How does
How
one
to conquer fear? Read some Swami Vivekananda's lectures are there. Fear comes from the second, from outside source. Fear comes from outside source, right? You're afraid of what? Losing a job, or not making enough money, or becoming sick. These are all causes of fear. All of these are things that happen outside of you. And you are the Atman, right? All these things affect only the body and the mind. They are not the Atman. So if you are established in Atman self-knowledge, then there is no fear. Only Brahman. Who is afraid of whom? Of what? So that's a very high state. Before we reach that stage, we can overcome fear by doing two things. Prayer and reasoning. Prayer is make my mind free from fear, kama, etc. Kama adi dosha rahitam purumanasam. Pray to God to make you strong and free from fear. Repeating God's name gives you strength. Gandhiji did that. Second thing is reasoning. 90% or more of the time, what we fear does not happen. We are afraid of so many things. Most of them things don't happen, but we are afraid it may happen like that one. So if it happens, then I will deal with it. But right now, I'm not going to worry about it because it's all possible probabilities. Everything is probable. So I'm not going to worry about it. Reasoning, most of the time it will not happen. I take all precautions, preventive measures, remedial measures, and then pray. Three things. Preventive measures means preventing possibilities of problem. Taking insurance and following all precautions in driving. Those are things we have to do to prevent any problem. When some problem comes, then you take remedial. If supposing there's a flat tire when you drive, then you call AAA and they will help you to fix it. That's a remedial measure. And then if after all these things still problem remains, then you practice forbearance, titiksha. I've done everything possible. Now this problem has come, I'll have to bear with it. Like that.
But Swamiji, sometimes people brush off fear and saying, "Oh, it's in the future. I'm not going to worry about it." And it is what is the difference between actually finding that equanimity? Yes, there is fear. There possibly I'm not going to worry about it, versus indifference, which is not a true equanimity between the reality and the future. How would you differentiate that, Swamiji?
So we have to do, as I said, three things. We have to take preventive measures to prevent possible problem. For example, I'm afraid of sickness. My fear is I may become sick. So how can I prevent becoming sick? By following the rules of health, by doing exercise, by eating in the right quantity, right amount, sleep, etc. Those are preventive measures. Still I may become sick after taking preventive measures. Then I go to remedial measures, go to the doctor and take the remedies. Still the problem may not go away. Then I have to practice titiksha, forbearance. Whatever cannot be prevented, cannot be remedied, has to be endured because of my karma. Patiently I have to endure. Those three things we have to do. And pray. Prayer, of course, helps everything.
Good. Thank
And
you.
when Brahmajnana comes, no fear, because only Brahman, who is afraid of whom? Only I am that Brahman, no fear. That is the highest solution to all fear, Brahmajnana. But these are in between solutions right now.
I heard Kriyaman Karma was it's a current choice in our current life. For example, one of the Swamijis that I heard is that playing a deck of cards, you are given certain cards, and that is your destiny. But which cards to put down is our free will choice, and that's how he explained Kriyam and Karma in the current state. And Prarabdha is what we have to go through. But it can be reduced, like you said, Swamiji, the intensity of that can be reduced with prayers. And that I have experienced myself. Intensity reduced meaning, yes, I suddenly feel that pain. And then immediately I realize, oh, I am not in pain. My mind is in pain. And so I come back to the balance much sooner. Before it was 15-20 minutes. Now it's less time. So I realize that, hey, I am fine. It is my mind that is attached, that is crying. So that's how I realize Kriyaman Karma versus Prarabdha Karma, which I have to forbear until it is washed out.
Shall we say the closing prayer now?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yeah.
Yes. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhavet Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all be happy. May all be free from diseases and other problems. May all understand and practice what is right, auspicious and noble. May there be no suffering for anyone. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. May there be peace everywhere in nature. Hari Om Tatsat Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. All of you stay well and be careful. And God willing, we'll see you next time.